All right, today I want to talk about my two separate experiences talking to financial advisors at two different points in my life, my wife and I's life. First time was back in 2011. I just graduated from college, had my first real engineering job, and figured I'd have a little bit of extra money to invest every month. Wouldn't hurt to sit down and talk to a financial advisor, get some suggestions, you know, see what my best options were. So at the time, I was banking at U.S. Bank. Met with a local financial advisor at one of the branches, um, and kind of sat down with him, talked through where we were at. I was fresh out of college. We had just purchased our first home. Um, First time having a really decent paycheck. But other than that, really didn't have any assets. We owned our two cars. We had a mortgage on our first home, and that was kind of the gist of our financial situation at that time. Fortunately enough, we had no credit card debt, no student loans at that point in our lives. So really, it was just cars, house, jobs. Pretty straightforward discussion with the financial advisor. Um, in retrospect, the answer should have been from a good financial advisor who had no skin in the game. And I get that this would have meant that this gentleman would have made no money off me whatsoever. However, what he should have told me, in my opinion, at that point, was max out your 401k, open a Roth IRA, and start putting money into that. And that should have really been all. I didn't have enough money to max my 401k match from my employer and max my Roth IRA opportunities. So really opening a separate investing fund to invest into the stock market made no sense for me at that time. However, that was the way for this person to make some money. So he mentioned opening up a directed stock market fund through him, and putting X amount of dollars. I think just to open the account in the first place, it was like $3,000 deposit, and then it was like $100 a month to put in there, and then he would essentially invest that. Well, in reality, at that low level of money, that just means they're gonna pick a mutual fund for you and charge you their percentage fee for being your financial advisor. Which again, I get it. He's not making any money. Even 2% of $3,000 every year is nothing. I get that. So for him to spend the time advising me just didn't make sense. And in my personal opinion, that's what financial advisors should tell people in that position that I was in at that stage of their lives, and the amount of money you can invest. Just be honest. I'm not worth it. Like, that's what they should be telling these people, is I'm not going to provide value to you. And this is why. However, that's not the case. That's not the conversation that transpired. He ended up giving me some prospectus options. I went through and did the math myself and saw that at the time I think it was about a 2.5% fee, regardless of how my money did. So that would mean my money would have to be invested on average, making 2.5% better than the market, following the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones, or any of the other mutual fund options out there. And thankfully, I realized that that was pretty unlikely. I mean, you could see the perspectives that he gave me and the percentage gains year over year for the past 20 years or so, and then compare that to the S&P 500 and just be like, sure, sometimes you've beat them by a few percent, but sometimes it's beating you by a few percent. And where's that 2.5% fee that's just going straight to your pocket? Like, the value wasn't there, and it was obvious. So, told him, we wouldn't be working together, thanked him for his time, and moved on. Fast forward now 12 years to this past June. Chase Bank opened a new bank close to me, and a financial advisor reached out. And I thought, hey, wouldn't hurt to sit down. Now, obviously, having been 12 years further along in my own financial journey, still owned 2 cars, had just the mortgage as far as debt. However, we had a good amount more income. We were able to be in a situation where we were maxing out our 401k and our Roth IRA contributions, and had some money in addition that we could do some things with. Open maybe a investment account. So figure, what the heck, let's go talk to him. Put all my money, all my numbers in order, bank statements and everything, get him a good feel for my financial situation. Went and met with him a few times. Very nice person, great, like, nice gentleman. No negative comments in that regard. However, again, they're looking out for themselves, which makes sense. This is their job, obviously. They're looking to see what kind of money they can make off of each person. And I still think, even in my current situation, making a six-figure salary and having the ability to invest outside of the Roth IRA and 401k, still, I think these financial advisors, in all honesty, should tell people, even in my current state right now, they're not worth me investing in them. I don't have the amount of money for them to really spend a significant amount of time on a monthly or even yearly schedule to actually invest specific to me and my family. It really does take hundreds of extra thousands of dollars for you to be able to invest for me to think it makes sense to have a financial advisor, and for them to really personally invest for you and actually take into account your desires and your preferences. Again, it just, when you're talking in percents, it just doesn't make sense for a financial advisor to really consider you individually. And I get that now after talking to this person, because, he whined and, he offered to take us out to dinner, mentioned, like, we had similar interests and similar family situations, and we'd be, pretty well aligned on money decisions, and that he could invest our money and it would apply, all the great things all sounded great. Now, when it came time to sign on the dotted line, essentially he gave me a mutual fund that had a 1% fee, 1% yearly fee, regardless of performance, that he thought aligned pretty well with my goals and my interests and kind of what my philosophy of investing was. And I really had a hard time not just laughing at him and being like, hey, so for the last 3 or 4 meetings, you've mentioned how you're going to take a personal interest in investing my money, and it was all bull. Because he was just going to have this other group of people who were managing this mutual fund. My money was just going to go into that mutual fund. And sure, it might have loosely tied to the things we had talked about, but he wasn't going to personally be doing anything with my money, which, again, in retrospect, makes sense. I get it. No hard feelings. But it made absolutely no sense for me to work with him, because he was going to be charging me a 1% fee on my investment. And again, it was a perspectives that sometimes beats the S&P 500, sometimes doesn't. However, on average, it doesn't beat the S&P 500 for the last 20 years by 1%. So it makes zero sense. I should be putting my money into the S&P 500 or a mutual fund that closely ties to it through Vanguard or Schwab or any other financial institution, where you're going to be paying a fraction of the fee in the 0.1 or 0.05%. So I told him, thank you for your time, and I've realized that unless I become much, much, much more wealthy than I expect I will ever become, it will never make sense for me to have a financial advisor. And it will just be more logical for me to max 401k contributions, at least to the match of your employer, max your Roth IRA, then max your 401k even past your match. And then at that time, you can open a separate investing fund with Vanguard or whomever else. And for me personally, I'm now just going to be following the S&P 500. I'm going to be investing in the S&P 500, because trying to pick stocks, just, seems kind of silly. But also having a financial advisor, unless you're extremely, extremely wealthy, in my opinion, does not make sense. Hope you found a penny to pinch today. Have a good day.